What are better rewards, slots or tables?
Yeah, industry and customer debate for many years, right? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I know it's going to depend on if you want to know how to get more rewards in Vegas casinos, get better comps, and just get a better overall understanding of how the casino system works in the Las Vegas area for your next trip, then I've got a guest here I think you guys are really going to like. Guys, this is Nick Fava from Ellis Island. Say hi.
Ladies and gentlemen, nice to meet you. Currently, I run casino marketing at Ellis Island. I'm the director of casino marketing over there. Held various positions from junior host, executive host, player development manager, all the way up in the casino side of the industry. So I can't wait to share some great insight with you.
Well, then, quick background, you're a UNLV graduate.
Yep. Bachelor's and master's, both from UNLV. Go Rebels.
Okay. And how many years have you been in gaming now?
Gaming for me has been formally 5 years, but my father, family, everybody's been involved in gaming for many years through the hospitality industry, so I've always had exposure to it, but I've only been 21 for 5-6 years, right? So
Only been able to legally work
in the industry for so long.
And where are you originally from?
I moved around. I was born in Reno, upstate Nevada, and then I lived in Michigan, Ohio, Canada, Florida, bounced around with my father who was taking different hospitality jobs. And then, obviously, me wanting to be in industry, made sure I moved back to Las Vegas to finish my degrees, get involved in industry, make some good connections, because it's the hospitality capital of the world.
Exactly. So I've got some questions here. There's some I came up with on my own, some that you have contributed. So thank you to everyone who contributed to this. And we're going to touch on a variety of things here and see what we can do to help, dispel some of the myths and some of the things that people hear about when it comes to casinos and gambling and getting rewards and comps, because there's a lot of nuance and differences from property to property, on strip versus off strip, and even just within internal operations, how different casinos choose to operate and grade players and that sort of thing. So, the very basic part, we'll start here with good question I had from someone who just wanted to break it down to, what is it that you do? So what does a host do? How does a player get a host? And then, what perks, if someone said, what perks do you provide? So, what is your job? How does someone get a host to approach them? And then once you do, what is the benefit to the player?
Yeah, no, great question, Jacob. So I know a lot of people are scared of host, right? Especially when they're in the beginning of their gambling career, let's call it, or when they aren't involved in industry and such that much. But host can be your very best friend on property at any property that you're at, right? Now, you are going to have to hit a certain level of, we'll call it gaming activity to receive a host, but it doesn't mean that you can't seek one out or talk to them as well, right? So from a property standpoint, the host is going to be responsible for making sure that you have the best trip possible and not only meeting your expectations, but exceeding them, right? And that could be through making restaurant reservations. That could be booking shows and events and nightclub and entertainment and such for you. That could be through offering additional offers such as free play, food and beverage, that sort of stuff. It could be accompanying you throughout your entire night at the property. Could be bringing you to different events. They could also invite you to VIP events such as slot tournaments or craps tournaments or big New Year's Eve parties, Super Bowl, March Madness, all those good things. So once again, they're going to become or be your best friend on property, especially if you're a player that can really control that entire experience for you and add different things to it, right? To really make that special. Because before you have a host per se, a lot of the experience is going to be based on what you do, right? You're going to book a room online. Let's say you're going to go to the property. You might have got a direct mail offer for a comp night with some free play and some food and beverage. You're going to go in, enjoy yourself, go to the restaurants, make all your own reservations, do all these things yourself. Now, there's a lot of qualified players that may be eligible for a host that don't have one, right? And that could be through them needing to seek out a host themselves. Obviously, if they're doing their job, good player development department is going to seek out all of their good players. So you don't have to do all of that manual work on your own. But yeah, that host is going to be extremely pivotal in making sure that experience is great for people on property, making sure that their trip is catered to the ways that they want to experience it, and that they're receiving the kind of engagement such that they want whenever they come to Las Vegas. Let me get that straight for the record too, is hosts don't just reside in Las Vegas. If you're a gambler that's in a regional market, right, the Midwest, east side of the country, Atlantic City, whatever it may be, there's host at most, if not all, properties. Now, you might have some smaller properties that don't have a casino host. They're still going to have people that can take care of discretionary comps or different offers or a promotions department or something per se. But a host just isn't something that only resides in Las Vegas, because many people see the glitz and glamour or movies with casino hosts and think, oh, they only do these huge large scale events, right? And run you around for New Year's Eve and that stuff. But that's not always the case. You can find casino hosts just about any property you go to, whether if you're driving to your favorite casino in Oklahoma or you're coming to the Wynn at Las Vegas.
Yeah, and obviously, Ellis Island is a family-owned property, a smaller property here in Las Vegas. But companies who've got casinos across different states, and people who are traveling to different states, the host in their home state could probably refer them to a host in another state. They're going to go to one of their sister properties in another state. They can call and make a connection for them and say, hey, I have a player coming in. Please make sure you take care of them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. And some companies even have regional host, they'll call it, where you have the same casino host throughout the entire company or entire region, right? Let's say you're a Caesars player, they'll have some regional host that'll be over every property in Las Vegas, maybe some other regional properties, so you don't have to change host. You may have somebody else that takes care of you once you get on property, because they're not going to travel the world with you unless you're a real big player. But they'll make sure you're taken care of wherever you go.
One viewer brought this up I thought was interesting, is they said they'd had hosts approach them in the past, but they shied away because they just didn't know how it works. They're just like, okay, thanks for approaching me, but I don't know. Am I supposed to tip you? Do I pay you something? What are even the boundaries of what a player, what's within the boundaries of what a player can even ask for?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because especially in today's world, people are always weary of scams, right? And in a city like Las Vegas, there's people on the street, slapping cards at you and trying to get you to sign up for timeshares and things of that nature. So if you're not used to, right, what a casino host does or have experience with it, then that would be an odd experience for most to start, right? But in that case, I think that's a very valid point in question. Whereas if a casino host approach you, 95% of the time it's solely because your gambling was at a level high enough to get their attention, right? So if somebody's approaching you saying, hey, it's nice to meet you. My name is Nick Fava. I'm a casino host at this property. I'd love to buy you dinner. Well, you should take advantage of that fully, because they're noticing your energy, time, and money that's gone through their property, and they want to reward you for that, right? And I can tell you, even in my position, I still do this on a daily basis, right? I'll go approach players on the floor. Hey, so nice to meet you. How can I help you today? Would you like to get dinner with us? How long are you staying? Where are you staying? Can I have you back? Right? And a lot of that's going to be personality type things. If the host is approaching, in the right way, right? If they're hospitable in that sense. And we can't say that every single one is going to be, but you shouldn't be scared of them, because they are coming to you because of the money that you're spending at that property. You should feel good about that. Hey, I've got the attention of a casino host in Las Vegas. Right now, it's not to say you're going to start running them around as your personal slave to do any single thing that you want them to do, right? But you can definitely take advantage of that and then get yourself more educated. Hey, thank you so much for approaching me. I'd love to do dinner tonight. Just out of curiosity, what else can I expect from my play? What other benefits do you offer for VIP customers here? Do you guys do this, this, this? Hey, I really enjoy going to the pool and having a room credit, and I love this bottle of wine, right? Is this possible? The worst somebody can say is no, or tell you how to get there, right? But now you've given yourself an avenue to, first of all, become more educated within whatever property you're playing at and the industry as a whole, and start to get some extra perks for your play. And then third of all, giving yourself a resource to achieve the things that you want to achieve through your playing gambling. Because my philosophy is you're putting the money out there anyway, so you might as well get back what you can.
And then, speaking of the part about, doing what makes you happy on your trip or doing what fits you and suits you, some people might think that if a casino host approaches them, that they're now expected to gamble more, or they're going to be pressured to try to play more money there, right? Because you think of a casino where every game on the floor, the casino has an advantage. And people come, they play for fun, but they might think that, okay, this person's now approaching me and they're just going to try to pressure me to spend more money. But if you're someone who you're just happy to come once a quarter, 5 to 10 grand is maybe your gambling budget, and that's just all you want to do once a quarter for the rest of your life, coming here to Vegas, then, you can stick within that. and the casino will take care of you without, you don't have to feel like you're trying to compete against all the biggest players and they expect you to become a whale necessarily.
100%. And you bring up some very interesting points there, and there's some varying thoughts on this in industry, right? I can tell you how I lead my teams and how I've performed as a host through my years of doing that job was transparency was always vital to my respect and alignment with customers, right? I would figure out, hey, what is your budget? Where are you comfortable, right? What do you want to spend on this trip? What's your gambling budget? And then we back into the type of experience that we can provide from that. What does that do? First of all, it allows the player to feel safe, right, in their budget, in what they brought to spend, and feel comfortable in what they're going to get on property. Second of all, it allows me, the host per se, to say, hey, I know player X is going to bring in $5,000. I can do this for him, and let's make it happen, right? Now, another piece of that being, it is the host's responsibility to make sure that people are gambling within their means, right? There's a notion out there in terms of problem gaming and things of that nature. Now, a very low percentage of gamblers are problem gamblers, but we always have our eye out for that. And people that are doing the host job well will never pressure you to gamble outside of your means, right? Now, they may tell you, if you want to reach out and say, hey, can I have tickets to the Skybox this weekend to watch the Raider game? I may tell a player, hey, you're not quite at that level yet. If you wanted to bring this much and play this much, I'm more than welcome or more than happy to see if I can get this experience for you. But is that comfortable for you? Because I don't want to push you outside of your means or your gambling budget just to get this experience, right? Now, another thing I'll say, which I tell people all the time, right, is if you're bringing that money as a gambling budget to Las Vegas or wherever you're going, right, and you're going to spend that anyways, not necessarily lose, but you're going to put that money in action, we say, then of course get all the comps possible, talk to your host, see what you can get out of it, see what you're entitled to in that sense, but don't necessarily go and spend 10 times more money just to get this, right? Because my philosophy as well is I'd rather create loyalty with a customer and have them back 6 times throughout the year, right? Instead of coming in one time and losing $250,000 and saying, Nick, I had a terrible time here. I lost all my money. I'm never coming back, right? And we see that all the time. And sometimes we can't control those things in terms of how a player plays or how they spend their money or what they do. But the mission being putting people in comfortable states where they are still going to enjoy their experience and have fun. Because if we can provide them with a fun experience and we create something that's above their expectations, what do we get in return? We get customer loyalty. They want to come back. They want to see us. They enjoy themselves. That's somebody that we have that'll come on property. If they don't have that experience, if they gamble way outside of their means, they don't have fun, or if they get no perks for this or something was missing from their room that they requested from their host, right? Then in turn that damages that relationship. So it's really up to us to manage those relationships and make sure our people are comfortable and happy, because at the end of the day, people are coming to Las Vegas or their other properties or they're gambling because they want to. It's entertainment value, right? And it's up to us to make sure that they're compensated for that, having fun for that, that they're enjoying that experience.
And you've seen also too over the years, maybe someone when they're a newer gambler and, they're just betting table minimums when they come in. But, over the years, as their income grows, they visit, right? They start betting and playing more. But then you also, over the years, I'm sure you've seen those players, like I mentioned earlier, but like, hey, I come once a quarter, I bring this much amount, and that's it. Casinos, I mean, especially, bigger or smaller, but the casinos, they're going to have an array of customers. So, I just say that because whichever one you are, you can be either one at the casino. If you want to spend more overtime, you can. If you just want to say, hey, this is my cap every year I go on my trips, I just leave it at that. And, they'll do what they can either way to try to help you out. They're happy to have whoever's going to come and spend.
Yeah.
But, you don't have to think that over the term of the years you're coming to Vegas that you have to try to like compete with the other whales and become like their next biggest player.
100%. Yep, that's completely correct. And I'll do a little shameless plug here. So at Ellis Island, we have 10 times odds on the dice table, 3-2 blackjack. Both go down to $5 at the low end. And I can't tell you how many customers I talk to on a daily basis, hey, Jacob, what brought you into property? How'd you hear about us? Oh, I came to play your $5 dice table. I'm like, well, your average bet was $300, right? And they're like, yeah, but I like the option to go down. I don't want to have to play $50 or $25 minimums. I like the option to go down to 25. But to your point, there's definitely different ways to get there, and you want to gamble where you're comfortable, So I have some players that'll come in, they'll play $50 a hand, let's say, for 12 hours. And that's what they like to do. They like to sit at the blackjack table and enjoy themselves. I have some that like to come in and play thousands of dollars a hand for 2 or 3 hours, right? And that's completely fine. Once again, all about your experience and having your fun. Now, keep in mind from a comp perspective, right? If you're what we call a hit and run type player, if you're going to come in and play big or take a big loss or big win and only play 30 minutes on table games, we're talking about specifically, those type of players are harder for casino hosts and properties to comp, because you really establish comp value or value as a player in general based on how much you're betting, the type of game you're playing, and how long you play. So I get people all the time that'll come in, lose, let's say, $1,000 in 10 minutes on blackjack. Hey, can I get a comp? Of course, we're still going to give them a comp, take care of them the way we can, but they may come back the next day and win $2,000 in 10 minutes, right? From the casino, it's all a math and time game. Over the long run, they have an advantage on these games. Not to say people can't win, they do every single day, and that's why Las Vegas is such an attractive destination and gambling is growing all over the world, right? But you need to, one of two ways, put your money in action, give the casino a lot of time, or you get your butt kicked. We hope this one doesn't happen, right? But you at least got to do one or the other to really establish comp value. So we hope it's time and you're winning while you're doing it, because that's another misconception that a lot of players have is if they win, they can't get comped, right?
Oh, yeah. You don't have to lose money.
Yeah, you don't have to lose money. A lot of properties are comping on what we call theoretical value. I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of that, but that's basically, in simple terms, how long you play, how much you played through whatever game you're playing, and the type of game you're playing, right?
Some people come for a weekend and they break even. Some come on a weekend and they lose big. Some come on a weekend and they hit big over the weekend.
And it's called gambling for a reason, right? Some people win, some people lose. And a lot of players think, oh, I won, I can't get anything. Well, that's not true. Now, if you come in day one and let's say Nick comps you 3 nights over Super Bowl, puts together a really fun experience for you, free play, everything else, and you're having a great time. You come in day one and win $50,000 in 10 minutes and don't play for the rest of your trip. Yeah, that's not going to look too good, and I'm probably going to have to charge you for the room and some other things that we put together for you, right? Now, if you come in day one and you play 12, 16 hours over your trip and win $50,000, I say, hey, congratulations, I love you, take that money home, have a good time, and I'm still comping everything on the way out, right? Because you put your money in action, you gave the casino a shot, right? And that's all that they can ask for. So don't get misconstrued and think that just because you win, you're not entitled to comps, you're not entitled to different things, because you most definitely are, as long as you put in the time to get those offers, right? It can't just be a 10, 5-minute thing. So I tell everybody, make sure you give the time that's qualified, right, to get those sorts of offers and good stuff. And that's another good point that we can touch on that from an earlier question would be a conversation with a host can also look like, hey, how long do you need me to play? What do you want my average bet to be, right? What does that look like for you? Industry standard is going to be, let's say you bring $5,000 with you. A host would look for you to bet on table games 1% to 2% of that, whatever deposited or credit line amount, for 4 hours a day. So in that case, it'd be $50 to $100 average bet for about 4 hours a day. Now, if you come in and play 8 hours on day one, you have all this stuff scheduled on day two, and you don't play at all, then you have, day three, come back, play 4 hours. Of course, that's fine, right? Point being, that's the amount of time that the casino is deemed that gives them, right, the ample value needed to comp you or offer you for that trip. And there's nothing wrong with having that conversation with your host, and it goes both ways, from a slot perspective or a table perspective, whereas tables will probably say, hey, I need this to be your average bet in your time. Slots, I need you to earn this many points or coin in this much money over your trip, right? Win or lose. We never want to tell players, hey, you got to lose $10,000 to do that, because that's not the case, right? But we'll tell you, how much time and what I expect your play to be over that time period to meet the value of comps that you're receiving or that I would want to offer you.
So at a smaller property, this may not be the case so much, but this is kind of goes back to like etiquette and people getting to know a host, or still being newer to having hosts approach them. Say maybe someone really likes the casino property they're at, but they don't quite get along with the host they have, because it's just a host comes up and they don't get to choose who it is. And these casinos have teams of hosts. I mean, would it be appropriate for them to say, hey, can I have another host, or hey, could I try, like, I like gambling here, but could I possibly try working with someone else?
That's a great question. And a lot of people are afraid to have that conversation, right? And this is going to depend from company to company, how they handle those situations and what that policy is like for them. But from a player standpoint, you should always be able to go and have that conversation and adjust your host if you're not meshing with that person, right? Doesn't necessarily mean, oh, they're not giving me this, so I don't like them, right? But it may be, hey, our personalities don't mesh. We had a argument, whatever it is. I'd like to try somebody new. That's a completely valid conversation to have. That's a completely valid response. Now, a lot of that can be done. You're not going to tell your host directly. That's not a nice conversation to have, right? Hey, I don't like you. Can you switch me out, right? tap in the next guy, please. But usually you can reach out to promotions department, player development department. There'll be a player development manager or a player development director, casino marketing director. That'll be happy to have that conversation with you and switch that host coding, they would say, or give you somebody new to take care of you in that matter, and make sure that, first of all, your experience is great, because your experience as a customer is paramount to the property, right? And your own trips and coming out to enjoy yourselves and have a good time. So if they're not willing to do that, that'd be a telltale sign in my mind that you may want to find someplace new to enjoy your time.
And then, and if your host is not going to be there on property one day when you're coming, and they should obviously be saying, hey, I won't be there, but go ahead and ask for this person. I'll let them know you're coming. They're going to take care of the whole thing for you.
Yep, 100%. I do that all the time with players, and most hosts do. If they're not going to be on property, they'll let their people know, hey, I hope you enjoy your trip. This is set up for you. This is set up for you. We have your dinner reservation at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. I'll be gone throughout the weekend, but if you need anything, here's, let's say, VIP services agent that can take care of you. Here's other hosts that can take care of you. Here's other team member that can take care of you, just to make sure that that is a process for the player that's easy and that they know who to reach out to when they're on property.
When it comes to things like table minimums, so, Ellis is known for having low table minimums, right? The off-strip properties in general are going to have those lower $5, $10 craps or double zero roulette or blackjack or things like that. But I mean, even the $5, only a handful of places offer that. So, those places offer that, they're unique in that regard, and that their table minimums are already lower as part of what makes them competitive. But like with a host, in general, someone asked, would they be able to impact table minimums? As a customer, say, hey, dude, these table minimums are too high, or will the host take feedback from customers on things and say, hey, can we relay this to the management that we're getting lots of complaints or issues about this, or just, a lot of things that people have commonly in recent years complained about Las Vegas changing?
Yeah, I think that's a two-pronged question, right? So most of the time, the host will only have influence on bringing the table minimums higher, right? So in that case, you have a very big customer that wants to come in and bet $50,000 a hand, but the table minimum is only $20,000. We may go as a host and say, hey, player X wants to bring in or wants to bet this amount. And then you would talk about a deal perspective from the casino side and say, we want this player to deposit $500,000 upon arrival, play this much throughout their trip, and then we'd be willing to move that table minimum up for that player. Now, all depends on the property. That's all they're called. That's not always going to be the case, right? Some properties can only accept so much exposure in terms of table maximums, so they're set that way for a reason, but you can always have that conversation to see if that's adjustable. Now, from a player standpoint, looking to lower a table minimum, because we all know that's a very hot topic in Las Vegas, and I see it all the time, especially at Ellis Island. I have multiple players that come in and they love the low table minimum, but to my point earlier, they come in, they end up playing much higher throughout their trip, but they want the option to go down to $5, $10, $15, things of that nature. And in that case, they should be taking all feedback that they would get from players and relaying that to casino management to let them know, hey, we get this request a lot. Is this going to be a possibility? But they're not going to be the one that's going to be able to move a table minimum down or have that conversation to say, hey, can we get this down to $5? It's not going to happen almost anywhere you go. Now, on the flip side of that, I know some players are iffy about this, but a lot of electronic table games are now offered, right, that you can bet much lower minimums. For instance, Win just put a roll-to-win game in there, and it has a $5 minimum, which you wouldn't expect from the Win. Ellis Island has a roll-to-win game that's a $5 minimum, as well as our live dice game and $5 blackjack and things of that nature. So if you are open to playing some of those electronic options, typically you can get in at much lower minimums on just about all of them, from baccarat to roulette, blackjack, craps, because they allow less exposure. There's less labor cost and things of that nature to pay on that game, so it can afford to be a lower minimum on it. Now, if you're not that type of player and you want to play low minimums, and the casino that you currently go to that you're looking at doesn't offer that, you can always search around on casino websites and things of that nature, because most of them will have their table minimums posted on there in terms of, hey, blackjack's going to be $5 minimum, this maximum, crap's going to be this, and you can find a property that more so aligns with your play style is what I would recommend, outside of asking a property to lower the minimums, which is going to be a tough thing to do most of the time, as those things are set in stone. And kind of brings up another issue that I wanted to touch on through this conversation, would be peak times raising table minimums. Now, some properties have different views on this. For instance, at Ellis Island, we never raise our table minimums. It could be New Year's Eve and we're completely jam-packed and don't have a seat in the pit. We'll still have a $5 blackjack table, right? Could be Super Bowl, the whole craps table is full, right? We're still going to have that low-limit craps table, right? Some other properties don't live by that notion. They have different peak demand pricing, we'll call it, price being the average bets and such that are offered on the game. So that may change. Now, if that changes at the property, once again, they're typically not going to lower that, but you are always welcome to ask, right? Because I've seen multiple times where if you have a group of players and you're at a property and you fill the table, you say, hey, we really want to play $10 instead of $15. You talk to the pit boss, say, can we play 10 instead? Sometimes, not going to say all the time, they'll say, yes, no problem. We'll take care of that for you. In the word of customer experience, and because you have a full game they're playing, right? You can always have that conversation.
And I've also been in casinos too, where, supervisor goes, looks on, goes, table's kind of full, goes, I like this group, and they'll just up the minimum. So hopefully no one else comes out to the table and play. I won't say where, but I've seen the opposite end of that too, where, they'll just up the minimum, and that way, hopefully, it keeps the group that they have at the table going, because they'll be grandfathered in.
Yeah, and then keep in mind as well, when that happens, it's not always for that reason. Sometimes they will raise a table minimum if somebody wants to play by themselves and they're a good player, right? Or if they have, like you said, a good group on the table that's playing well and they don't want other people to come in, that group may have a conversation, hey, Mr. Shift Manager, we really love our group. We have three of us. We're playing double your minimum. We're playing the minimum, right? We're having a blast. Is there any chance that we get this game to ourselves? So sometimes the metric they'll use to do that, instead of saying, hey, this game is reserved, is they'll raise a minimum just to ensure that if that group is going to be broken up, that experience is going to be tampered, that it's for somebody that's worthwhile in terms of a higher average bet or something like that, right?
When it comes to people's play, what kind of average play or theoretical loss, does someone need to start getting like sweets comped to them and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is going to depend on the property you're at, first and foremost. They'll have different ranges in terms of how much you have to play to get specific room types. And then it's also going to depend on the time that you're looking at. If you're asking for a suite over New Year's Eve, the criteria is going to be much different than a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in July, right? So keep in mind that when you're reaching out. Now, a lot of times your direct mail offers are going to automatically tell you what type of room you're getting, and whether if it's a standard room, a suite, a corner suite, or whatever that property offers. And remember, all properties offer different types of rooms, and they all call them different things. Most of the time, they will have pictures on their website for people to go check out if they want to know what type of room that they're looking at, right? But to your point, there's really no finite way to say, hey, if you start playing $100 a day for this many hours, right? You're going to get a sweet offer because it's all dynamic. Now, that's another great conversation to always have with your host because it's going to be property specific. At Ellis Island, let's say, if you're coming in over the weekend, you may be a $100 better that plays for 5 hours a day, right? That would probably get you into a suite most of the time with us. Now, barring any extenuating circumstances in terms of big festival weekends, concerts, conventions, all that stuff, now that criteria may change on the weekday because on the weekdays typically it's easier to offer different room types, right? Now, kind of contradicting my earlier point where your room offer is going to have a specific thing on it, whether it be standard room, suite, whatever it is. Now, if you know you're coming during a low volume time, you can always have a conversation as well and say, hey, I know I got offered a standard room, but I'm coming on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Is there any chance I can get upgraded to a suite? And if that's of value to you, even if you wanted to take an upgrade and you weren't going to be completely comped, typically you would get that at a discounted rate. So they may say, okay, I can do it. I can't fully comp you, but it's going to be $75 a night with no resort fees, right? And you can get into the suite for a fraction of the price instead of going online and paying hundreds of dollars or whatever it may be for that day range that you're looking at. But yeah, it's tough to say in terms of what exactly gets you into a suite. It's all going to depend on what property you're at, what they expect out of their players, and how much those suites cost, right, in air quotes.
And also what games you're playing.
Yeah, what games you're playing, of course, and that's going to make a difference in terms of the value that you bring to a casino, right? Once again, game you're playing, time, how big your average bet is, and all those factors. Where on roulette, for the same amount of time, you're going to generate more. Let's put an example together. If you're playing a $100 average bet for 5 hours and you're playing on roulette, and you're playing a $100 average bet for 5 hours, you're playing on blackjack, you're going to establish more theoretical value on roulette than you are on blackjack, right? No, I'm not telling you to go play roulette instead of blackjack because you want to play whatever you find fun playing, right? But different games have different advantages to the casino, which is how theoretical is derived for customers and such. So keep in mind that the game you're playing may have different value, but at the end of the day, I never want to tell players, hey, play this to do this. You know, I want to say, what do you enjoy playing? You enjoy playing blackjack? Okay, cool. Now I'm going to tell you how to get there from a blackjack perspective. That's really the job of the host, not the player, to say, okay, well, I know if I play this game, now I'm going to get this, right? You want to play what you want to play and you want to enjoy yourself and have that conversation. Whereas your host may say, okay, you're a blackjack player. I need you to play $250 average bet for 3 hours or 4 hours a day over your 3-day trip, and I'm happy to put you in a suite.
I mean, and earlier you mentioned sometimes a person, you might have a player like, hey, dude, I'll put you in a suite for your trip, and like that. Like, I really don't want a suite. I just want a standard room. You know, if I just take a standard room because I don't plan to be there very often, like, can you give me a little more free play? Could that work the other way around? Or maybe it's like, hey, I'm bringing my wife and kids in this time. You know, can you put us in a suite and I'll take a little less free play or something like that?
Anything's possible, right? With some things, it's once again going to depend on the property because some are going to have the capability to remove offers and say, okay, yeah, let's give you less. Some are going to be automatically given to the player upon arrival, so you can't necessarily make adjustments there, whereas the room type can be adjusted, right? You can say, okay, well, I'm going to book you in a single king standard instead of a corner suite, and you can adjust that, and obviously it's less cost to the property and less of a comp that you're giving to that player. Now, from the free play perspective, always possible. Not the same exact transaction. It's not easy to switch and say, okay, I'm going to give you less free play and do this because that may be an offer that's pre-assigned for you, put on the kiosk or something like that. But always a good conversation to have just in terms of maximizing your offers and making sure that the things you find value in, you're getting more of, right?
And then, you know, we're talking comps and things like that. A lot of it is essentially, to use a term that I use a lot on social media, algorithmic, where, you know, it's going to be based on all these different factors for the offers you're getting. But, you know, when it comes to like a discretionary comp, you know, like a host is on the casino floor, how much, you know, discretion do they have to comp something for someone? Or, you know, what is, you know, a process that they may be using to decide whether or not this, like, hey, Yeah, I know you had a rough session. Say, man, let me get you a dinner
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah, that happens all the time still in Vegas. Now, properties are going to be different in terms of the programs and what they put together. Some properties may have what they call a comp points program put together, where you're accruing points over the time that you play for those things that would be discretionary comps, such as food and beverage, such as merchandise purchases, such as extra free play, right? And you're accruing that to use for those purposes. Now, some properties may not have that put together. They may be more discretionary comp centric. Some may use a mixture of both, right? I have a lot of players that always relate that example that you're talking about kind of back to old Las Vegas. Man, in old Vegas, it was so nice. You lose a few bucks in the pit, they write you a comp, and you just go to dinner and enjoy yourself.
Go to the buffet, enjoy.
Yeah, go to the buffet and have fun. Now, that definitely still happens. It just depends on where you are. At Ellis Island, we give a lot of discretionary comps still to players, right? Hey, thank you so much for coming in. And that more so aligns with our philosophy as a company of kind of wanting to hold on to that old Vegas hospitality, right? Now, not to say that we don't offer the other structures with point structures and being able to use those for different things, such as free play, food and beverage, and things like that. Now, at an MGM, that may look very different in terms of how you get a discretionary comp, or maybe much higher standards to get a discretionary comp. Now, I would say, once again, depending on the property that you're at, you lose a couple $100, right? You can always ask. Some of the larger properties may not be willing to give you a discretionary comp after a couple $100. Some of the smaller properties, and I may say, okay, yeah, you lost $500. Now I'm going to buy you dinner. Let's take care of you. Now, properties all have different metrics and things that they use. Typically, it's a percentage of loss or theoretical that they're willing to comp you, and it's going to be looked at from a holistic lens. What has this guest already redeemed? Have they already got food comps today from the kiosk? Have they already redeemed free play from their direct mail offers? Have they already got this? Now, if they've redeemed all that and player X still has $75 available in his comp bucket or an unused, right, then that maybe it'll be used as a discretionary comp. So I wouldn't use, from a player standpoint, discretionary comp in terms of something you ask for, try to get every single time you go somewhere. But I think it's more so longer sessions or things that are a little bit more outside of the normal, or something that you may have taken a little bit more of a big loss than you usually do. And in that case, hey, I kind of got my butt kicked today, or hey, I played for a while today, or hey, it's a special occasion. I come in all the time. Is there any chance I can do dinner? And most player development professionals are always happy to see what they can do in that kind of realm to make sure that you feel good, you're valued, and you're taken care of. Now, it's not going to be something that Jacob walks in every day and the first thing he does, hey, can I get a comp for dinner? Hey, can I get a comp for dinner? Hey, can I get a comp for dinner?
You might be that player.
Yeah. You don't want to be that player, right? But yeah, you get the point.
What are better rewards, slots or tables?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a industry and customer debate for many years, right?
Especially now as more slot machines are coming onto casino floors.
Yeah.
Places. So
what do you think?
Well, I mean, I know it's going to depend on, the table game depends on the table game, but I mean, now slot machines, those penny slots, man, oftentimes have like 10% hold or even higher sometimes for the casino, where, blackjack does not. You're already playing double zero roulette with 5.3%. So, I mean, in terms of the math, the hold is oftentimes higher for the casinos. They might love everybody to be sitting down at, Buffalo and Dragon Link all day and just coin in that money. But no.
You're a smart guy.
Yeah.
But once again, I'll preface that question with, first of all, play whatever you want to play, right? It's not always about going and getting the very best offers possible or maximizing this. First of all, you want to figure out what you enjoy as a player, where you want to spend your time and money, and what you have fun with, whether that's table games, slot machines, sports betting, horse races, these variety of different gambling atmospheres that we provide now in this city, in this country, right? But it's once again not a black and white answer. Depends on how much you're going to play, what you want to do, and how much money you plan to put through. Now, slots, your value is going to be determined. It's, to your point, the math on it, right, from a theoretical perspective, is going to be a little bit more in favor of the casino. For most games, not all of them, you have different things, 3 3-card pokers and things like that are going to be, or carnival games that are going to be vastly different from the advantage on a blackjack game, let's say. But in that case, yes, you can establish that amount of value. Now in table games, depends on how you play. You could play if you're $5,000 a hand average better, right? Are you going to have more value created than somebody that's playing $5 a spin on Dragon Link? Right? You know, of course, they're playing for 4 or 5 hours. They're going to generate more value for the casino than the $5 better on Dragon Link. So there's no numbers, and you can't compare it apples to apples because, you know, a $5 bet on blackjack, we all know, is not the same as a $5 bet on the slot machine. You could probably spin the button on Dragon Link 10 times before a decision's finished on this, right? So you're doing 5 times, 10 times more bets on your Dragon Link machine. Now, if you're looking at it purely from that perspective, where if you say, hey, I want to bet $5 no matter what, I'm going to play $5 blackjack, or I'm going to play $5 slot machines, you're going to generate more value on playing $5 per bet per spin on a slot machine than you would playing $5 per hand on a blackjack game. But once again, not apples to apples, because there's different time amounts in terms of the decision-making process, right? How that's gonna continue, right? And how many things you can do in a certain time period. So play what you want. Enjoy gambling the way you want to do it, right? And if you have questions on getting more value out of your play, that's definitely something that you can have a conversation about.
To access the full 90-minute interview, just scan the QR code on your screen or click the link below to join the Insiders Club today. Some of the extra topics covered include how a casino's ownership affects the comps you get, hidden benefits casinos don't advertise to the public, and how casinos grade their hosts. Plus, you'll get immediate access to exclusive Vegas deals like up to $500 in free slot play, 15% off your first order of show tickets, as well as discounts on food and drinks so you get more value for your dollar. We also track slot machine payback percentages, resort fees, parking fees, and casino table minimums to help you budget for your next trip. And we created a community forum where longtime Vegas visitors share their experiences and advice to help you prepare for your visit. Use the link below or the QR code on screen, and I'll see you there. I'm Jacob, and this is My Life in Vegas.